Hello, folks, and welcome to Transformed by Birth, a podcast about rites of passage and pregnancy, birth, and new parenthood. I'm your host, Britta Bushnell, author, mythologist, childbirth educator, and all-around deep diver with a side of goofball. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome. Today's episode is all about dads. So grab your cup of tea or take us for a walk as we dive into the rite of passage of becoming a dad with Dan Doty. Before we begin, we start the way that we always do, by lighting a candle. If you want to join me, please do. And if you don't have a candle handy, just take a breath with me as I light mine. Today's candle is for dads. There we go. All right. Well, dads hold a special place for me on the journey through pregnancy, birth, and new parenthood. I love working with dads. I remember when I was pregnant with our first child, how badly I wanted my husband to show up for me and our child, very specifically and in many ways. And what I wanted from him was really for him to be a second me. I wanted him to do what I would do either for me or for our family. And when he was himself instead, I got frustrated. It took me time to make more space for him to be himself and to be the parent that he was meant to be rather than a carbon copy of me. Do you feel me? Yeah. But much of that was about my journey. And Brent had to figure out how to show up for me, show up for himself, and become the father he wanted to be. And that was his unique and personal rite of passage. The transformation of becoming a father often gets relegated to side conversations at most, so as to not overshadow what's going on for the birthing parent. And while I get that and understand the desire, we're asking a lot of dads these days. Gone are the cigars in the waiting room and 1950s fathering expectations. These days, fathers are asked to advocate in the labor room, support emotionally through challenges, and co-parent equitably. With all that is asked of dads these days, we have to prepare them and support them appropriately. That's where today's guest comes in. Dan Doty has been working with men and boys for 20 years as a wilderness therapy guide, a men's work leader, and an executive coach. As the founder of Fatherhood Unlocked, he is helping bolster the mission of supporting dads to step up and be fully engaged and powerful co-leaders of their families. It's work like Dan's that is reshaping how men are supported to become dads. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you for that amazing intro. Wow. I feel like I got a big gift there. Thanks.
Well, this is the conversation we're having. And I love that. I mean, when I was revamping this podcast, having you on was definitely right in the top of my list because our work overlaps really beautifully. You and I are both passionate about rites of passage, and your work is specifically about the rite of passage of becoming a dad. So before we jump in, let's not assume that everybody speaks the same language. And can you talk about what rite of passage means to you and what is the rite of passage of becoming a father?
Yeah, beautiful. The word that comes up first as you ask that is maybe slightly technical, but it's threshold experience, right? But to unpack that a little bit, the way that I interpret or I guess experience rites of passages is that it is a moment or phase or series of moments in our life where there is sort of a clear stepping from one place into another place, right? I guess just to make it really relevant to me now, literally 2 days ago, my wife and I packed up our three kids, our two cats, and our dog, and we drove across the country to land in a new place. And I'm experiencing right now what feels like a very, very, very clear stepping into a new chapter of my life. And it's coming on the end of a midlife crisis. So I feel like I've been going through one of my rites of passage, a very clear rite of passage for about a year. And the results of it, I feel like I just kind of like got off the boat, right? The rite of
Right in
passage.
time to step into a new one.
Well, exactly. Yes. Yes. A
Let's
transition.
wrap up this
Yeah.
midlife
Yeah.
crisis and then I'll
Yeah.
move and then go through another rite of passage. Yes.
Right. I guess, the historical answer, or maybe the more common answer, I think, if I interpret it, is that a rite of passage is the marking and the honoring and the support and what is needed for an individual to grow into their next stage of maturation in their life. And I've been doing this very distinctly with boys and men for a long time in the moment of our history and our world where these, how do I want to say this? It's been such an interesting adventure for me to do what I can to create these authentic passages, these authentic containers, these authentic experiences for people that does the job or attempts to do the job of what cultures and communities did across the world for, time immemorial. And I get so yeah, it's something I have a lot of curiosity and passion for, is asking these questions of how we make these deep, important human moments and growth opportunities in the midst of our, I mean, fucking bonkers world. Let me just be, real straight about it. It's such a wild time to be a human. It's such a wild time to be a dad, you know. So
So
I
then
don't feel like I've nailed that, but
taking
yeah,
that definition, can you extrapolate it to the journey of becoming a father?
yeah.
And what is transitioning? What's happening? And why are we even having this conversation about this these days when we haven't talked about that even in some of those world tribal or ancient cultures. Becoming a dad was not something that was spoken about or took a lot of energy. So why are we talking about it now? And what is it?
Because
Yeah.
yeah, because within the last generational shift from my dad's moment to my moment of becoming a father, like you said so eloquently in your intro, the expectations and the role of fatherhood here in this little bubble that we inhabit of the Western world of the United States at this time, there is a, like, I think, a historic change, like truly, like on the human level, like historical level, an identity and role shift of dads sort of having the permission and the opportunity to lean into how I see it, our humanity, like a fuller breadth of our humanity, by really being full partners to our partners, really being full caregivers. And so I think it's probably fair to say that becoming a dad was always a rite of passage or a huge transitionary moment, right? If I were to name what I think the biggest core piece is, that what can happen for a man, what often happens for a man, it doesn't have to happen, is that for the first time in our lives, we are actually shown that we are not the center of the universe, that we are not the most, like, there's a Copernican revolution that happens in our psyches, and it may be even in our souls, where we just get out of our own way, maybe for the first time, where something like our hearts open and our children or our family sort of comes to the center position of what we care about, of what's most important. And it is a trip. It is an absolute trip. Um, and so I think that's one of the, like, the deeper levels of what's really shifting for a man. And like I said, the this, I think I've talked to my dad at length about this, right? And he definitely went through a big shift when he had me. I was his oldest child, and there was something that happened. But today, dads who are becoming dads right now really have like a substantial level of expectation on them, both from themselves and from the outside, that is, I think, sort of like condensing this rite of passage into something that's really, really defined, really sharp and has a lot of consequence for our partnerships and for our families in general in a way that it didn't always. I giggled when you said the cigar thing. I'm like, yeah, that is so not the case
Right? I
anymore.
mean, that is
Yeah,
just the nowhere near what is being expected of dads
yeah,
today. I mean, I think when I work with partners in my childbirth classes, there's an awareness that it was only 50 years ago where that was what was happening
yeah,
in childbirth spaces. It was super unusual for men to be in the labor room, in the birthing room. And now they're expected to be so much. And that's a
yeah.
short journey
It's super short. And so
or
one
a
of my
far
men,
journey in a short period of time is probably a better
yeah,
way to
well
say that.
said. One of my mentors is an author named Jed Diamond. He's written a lot of books about men and men's mental health and things like that. He literally had to fight his way into the birth room. He had to like actually physically move someone out of his way. And I think this was the 60s. This was like 64 or something like that. I mean, that's 70 years ago now. So
Yeah.
it's not like brand new, but uh, yeah. And I think it's hard to find the right words to really like capture the level of momentous difference this is, right? And so what we're really keyed into is capturing a vision or an image of what's happening now and kind of defining it in a few different ways. One is this deep inner change, this deep rite of passage, that soul level, identity level. And then there's also this practical level, which is just, I like to call a skills gap, right? There's a massive skills gap that dads are running into when their partner gets pregnant, when birth happens, when they're in the postpartum and fatherhood. These skills are teachable, they're learnable, they're trainable, but they're of the relational nature, they're of the embodiment nature, they're of the connective nature, they're of the caregiving nature. And this is just like, it's wild. It is. I think it's beautiful. That's one of the things I'm most excited about here, because I think this is an opportunity for men to really get in touch with parts of themselves that isn't only good for their kids and their partner. It's good for them in a really meaningful way. But it's a challenge. It's a big, broad uh, sort of set of capacities and skill sets that we've literally gone our entire life without being exposed to or being expected of us. And it's like, I'll end my rant with this, but I say this often. It feels to me like being asked to play in the Super Bowl having never played football in my life. That might be a little dramatic or a little hyperbolic, but there's something about that image to
Mm-hmm.
me that actually lands. Like, because we're stepping up to this biggest thing in our life and having literally no experience or even exposure to what we're headed into.
Yeah. And in many ways, that's setting a lot of new dads up for failure rather than
Yeah,
success.
yeah,
So, and then
absolutely.
wondering why they're struggling or having a difficult time. Well, there's in that 50, 60 years of rapid change in expectation, the preparation process has not kept up. And so and the cultural conversation has not kept up. And so there's not mentors. Our own father figures may not be able to speak to us about what is expected in a way that is connected to these newer expectations.
And what I want to add to that, Britton, what I'm so appreciative about you and our ability to dialogue about this is also, I think, what I want to just like name and put on the table. There's an immense amount of really pissed off women and really underwhelmed women out there who want much more, like you said in your intro also, right? But who are wanting and expecting much more from their partners. And I don't know that we have a layer of separation to talk about that very cleanly and directly. And I think it's really important.
I think it's very important.
I think it's so critical. One thing we're aware of is that on, there's so many Facebook groups and women's and, pregnancy support groups. And what we have learned is that there's a large percentage of that ends up being just like a place for women to vent about their partners not showing up, and we really, and here, like I have 20 years working with men. If I know one thing about men, we want to do well so bad. We want like we have like an overwhelming yearning to show up in a way that's helpful and supportive. And so it's the desire is there, and I know that. And
Yeah.
the so we're just hoping to be a bridge between these things.
Yeah. So I'm now my head is going in 1,000 different directions because going back to something you said a little while ago, I'm hearing you speaking about the transition of becoming a father, both from an identity place and
Yes.
a skills based perspective. So it's
Yes.
not just it's about both becoming a father
Yeah.
and learning to father.
Well said.
And they aren't
Absolutely.
necessarily the same thing, but they can happen in
No.
tandem.
Yeah, and they're inextricably, I can't say that word. They're
That's okay.
completely linked
Inextricably.
together.
Yes.
There it is. Yeah. Um, and it's interesting. So, my background is leans more directly toward the becoming a father, right? My background tends to be in the deeper layers of things. But what I've learned in this process in the last couple of years doing this work with expecting and new dads is that there it does seem to be that the skill set and the ability to make your way through this. My current assessment is that a level of address needs to be placed there first in order to have some space and
Mm.
some
So that's
spaciousness
part of the
for some of the
doorway.
deeper work. Yeah, it seems to be that way.
That
It seems
makes a
to
lot
be
of
that way.
sense.
Yeah.
Culturally speaking, societally speaking, there's an ease with uh, the doing
Yes.
rather than the self-reflection.
Well, 100%.
I mean, that's
100%.
just what we're all
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
generally comfortable with. I mean,
Yes.
maybe not me. I love like give me something to talk about and go
Yeah.
deep on and be self-reflective on. But in
Yeah.
general, I think there's a comfort in in that. And I notice with the folks that I work with in my work, often, particularly the men who come into the work, are
Yeah.
looking for guidance, looking for that desire you spoke about around how deeply and desperately they want to do well. They are looking for, tell me steps 1 through 10 of what I can do to be successful at this, which is a
Yes.
different conversation than talk to me about the radical personal transformation that is occurring in my psyche.
Well, I mean, you're nailing it, right? And so it's fun to have this conversation in this moment because we're marking 1 year of our fatherhood ready sort of world, right? Exactly 1 year we've been out and we have two main ways we serve dads and families right now. We have the just tell me what to do piece, which we called our baby prep HQ. And it's just that. It's just a list. It is a master shopping list. It's a master to-do list, line by line, all through pregnancy. It's a master packing list. It's a financial prep count. It is the doing piece. And
Yeah.
it is simple and it's direct. And what we found is that it does seem if a dad or expecting dad can breathe a little bit to know that he has something to mark along the way, something to measure against, right? Make some room for what our deeper offering is, which is our main course, right? And but that's both practical stuff, but also opportunity for deep sort of connective conversations with your partner and deep inquiry about your own fathering and who you want to be and intention setting, like the stuff that makes a really big difference and but takes more time and isn't top of mind, right? It's that, and I think you can only kind of access that sometimes if you have some of your boxes checked, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you are identifying and addressing and meeting dads in that place of it makes sense that you need some guidance. Here's some guidance. And the desire for that guidance is actually coming from the place of uncertainty that comes when we cross a threshold that is
Yeah.
profound and important to us. Part of what is happening is they are hungry for that guidance and those answers because it matters. It matters to them. So they want to get it right. If they didn't care, they wouldn't be asking for those suggestions and those bullet points.
I wonder if people understand actually how much it matters to men. Um, I think there may be a gap there.
Well, talk to us about it from your
Yeah,
perspective of what you
yeah.
know and see in somebody who specializes in that, in working with men.
Yeah, well, I've had the fortune to get to know and to work with thousands of dads at this point, and I make sure to ask every single one of them at some point along the course, what is the thing? What is the main thing in your life? What is the if everything else pared away, what's left? And I've never had a dad not answer my family, my children, my role as a dad. It is the central thing. And I'm sure there's, statistically, the dudes who come to me are a certain set of dads, and they're, leaning in intentionally anyway. But um, it is by far and away the most important and sacred thing in pretty much any man that I ever meet. It is the most important thing in their life. And it just it that we even when I say that now, it causes me sort of an interesting reaction because I the amount of support and attention and time we spend on that, it's just like if it is the most important thing, why the fuck aren't we talking about? Why do we not have things in place, right? And it's not that's my own thing, and it's not productive to go there. But I just want to point out the massive gap that in the actual hearts of men, which aren't often expressed. Let's just be honest. And maybe that's changing, and in certain places that's different, but guys like deeper truth often remains buried inside, right? But when you set the conditions for that deeper truth to emerge and to be out there, like I guarantee you what it is for pretty much any dude that has a child, it is that, and it's nothing but that.
Hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I in my 25 plus years of working with this population, mostly in couples format, I'm bowled over and often brought deeply into my own heart and my own emotions when I feel the level of commitment, hope, desire that is held within the partners who attend classes. You know,
Yeah.
even if part of my opening circle is asking why this class and what is it you hope to get out of this class. Those are two of my beginning questions. And why this class often is because she told me this is the one I was supposed to attend and I'm here.
Yeah.
And to me, that is an absolutely legitimate response and answer,
Mhm.
because within it is buried the deeper truth of what it is that matters to her matters to me.
Yeah.
And I want to be here and show up in a way that is truly supportive. So while it sounds like a throwaway response, it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's actually speaking to something deeper.
Could I ask you a question about that? I'm curious on your opinion. Do you think that there is a possible future where dads who are expecting on their own volition or by their own community or in their own life will or would start to know or feel that they had the onus to also look, to also, do you know what I'm asking there?
I
Yeah.
have already seen it start to happen.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It is happening. It is
Yeah.
beginning. I've been teaching classes, gosh, since 2002. So what is that? 23 years.
Yeah.
Um, and and back 23 years ago, that was not, no, the dads were not the ones who were finding my classes.
Right. Right.
But more and more that is true now.
Yeah.
More and
That's
more that
encouraging.
is true now. And even the expectant partners, fathers who say to that first question, why this class? Because it was the one that
Yeah.
they signed us up for. When they answer the second question, what is it that you want to get from this class? They have authentic personal desires
Cool.
that are theirs, that are about what it is that's missing for them, and they are able to identify.
Yeah.
And that matters.
Yeah.
That's
You
it.
know,
That's really important. Yeah.
that's cool. There's one of the things that I like to sort of name and just celebrate about what we're talking about here is that because we're what we're actually talking about to me branches out or has spokes that go out into such deep and meaningful and important topics that are happening in our world. And men in our culture, our boys are struggling with mental health and outcomes. And there's a really big um, I don't know, set of we're in an acute time of confusion and turmoil for men and their identity in our culture today. There's a lot going on in that. And why I bring that up is that I believe that when you take like a descriptive look at a dad who has young ones and is leaning in and is just giving his best, imperfect and all of the warts and all of the things. But I do believe that with that descriptive look at a dad who is, probably working out of the house and, really linear and engaged and trying to protect and trying to provide in the old school way, but then coming home and dropping down on the floor and being right there with his kid and like, doing his best with his relationship and just like really trying. My sense is that's just an incredible definition or an aspirational definition of masculinity or manhood, full stop. And I think that, when we talk about this as a rite of passage, I think I want to be careful to name also that it's not a clean thing. It's not like you go through a doorway and I mean, it
Yeah.
is
Our
so overwhelming.
understanding of threshold relates to
Yeah.
doors, and we feel like that's a one-step process. And that is understating what we're talking about
No,
here. Yeah.
it
It
is
doesn't
so
happen with
long.
the birth of the child.
No, no, it's a collective sort of adventurous mess of change that's always happening. But I do think what emerges here is for me like an image or an imprint that I feel like we can talk about, we can transmit. And this rite of passage allows dads this really, I think we're in an integrative moment or the possibility of integrating so many things. And like we talked, I guess we didn't say it namely, but when I work with dads intensely or more deeply, I really do separate of the doing and the being, and then sometimes the relating separately, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the you could call it masculine and feminine, which I don't like to. You could call it all kinds of different things, but we really, I think what is so cool about this transition for men is that we get to we have this challenging moment where we just really are maybe for the first time in our lives finally have real accountability in our lives in a way that no outside other structure brings, right? And so when I became a father, I had 10 years of men's work and meditation and mentorship under my belt. And, when it came to the heart stuff, when it came to the connective relational stuff, like I felt pretty prepared. I still got my ass kicked, like totally got my
Yeah.
ass kicked.
Yeah.
But what I didn't have, which I think maybe might be reverse of the more norm, is that I didn't know my head from my ass when it came to managing my money and investing, and I didn't have necessarily a clear plan set out for my career path, and I just the fullness of the expectations, and it's not just dads, I mean it's moms too, and it's all parents, right? But there is a unique thing that dads are coming in with, where historically and our programming, how we were raised is really does still come back to this protect and provide sort of basics, right? that's
Yeah.
that's like the underwiring that we have. But this transition that guys are going through is, it's just so damn exciting to me, because we both have to keep doing that, most of us, and we now have this opportunity and this need to slow the hell down, to learn how to communicate, to learn how to be actually present with ourselves, to actually learn how to be present with the ones we love. And I mean, I like a big challenge, and I honestly, like, I don't know what's a bigger challenge than that.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lifelong challenge.
Yeah. I love that you brought up this piece about the stability provider, that archetypal energy of helping to keep the home life safe.
Yeah.
That archetypal energy that often falls on the partner, the non-birthing parent, and in our conversation we're talking about that as dads. um, and it's interesting because when I reflect on the work with couples that I do, so often one of the things that we do is we talk about fears heading into birth. And most birthing parents have something that is about the birth process. They're worried about the pain, they're worried about the hospital, they're worried about losing control, there's some element that, or a surgical birth, or they've got something in that that is very specific and isolated and tends to be about that threshold cross moment specifically. But that's different with dads.
Yeah.
My experience has been that dads tend to have their fears are about kind of, I'm going to say they kind of fall in one of three, which
Mhm.
is fear of supporting and doing their best in labor and birth. Like it's about their own ability to show up and do what it is that is expected for them. That
Yeah.
that feels big and huge.
Performance is what
Yeah,
I'd call
it's
that.
about
Yeah.
it. Yeah, the
Yeah.
performance of
Yeah.
labor and birth.
Yeah. Mhm.
The second one I would say is about that piece you were just speaking about, which is about, holy shit, wait a minute. I'm now not just providing for rent and my house and myself and my half and my this, but now family building and
Yeah.
all the elements of that archetypal energy that gets activated.
Yeah.
Like you pee on a pregnancy stick and the birthing parent is like, whoa, okay, yeah, I've got all this. They're starting to think about these things. And I feel like for partners, it activates the provider in a different way. Like that's what
Yeah.
I see them get focused on. And then I would say the third fear has to do with fathering.
Yeah.
And it tends to be inspired in my experience by either a fear of being like theirs
Mhm. Yeah.
or a fear of failing to be like theirs.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, do you think it's skewed one way or the other, like more in one direction versus, because I have my answer, but I'm curious what.
Yeah, I would say it
Yeah.
skews
Yeah.
more in the direction of fear of being like their father.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
but I've been really moved and touched by some of the most tender, present, curious, introspective men that I've ever worked with. Their fear is the opposite, is about not living up to the role modeling that they got.
I've tracked it over the years as about 9 out of 10 is the first category, and 1 out of 10 is the second. And I mean, I think the hopeful way, or how I like to spin that or think about it, is that when I work with dads, I like to take them to an exercise where I have them sort of do a review of all the people that they know in their community and through their life, and to just think about what were the best examples of fathering that they've come across. And it makes for a very meaningful and deep discussion, and it pulls a lot of things to the surface. And the example that I like to give is that my wife, her grandfather, was a farmer on Martha's Vineyard, and a long lineage of living on this island in the Atlantic Ocean. And there is something about, and it wasn't just him, and it was him and his wife, so my wife's grandmother as well. But there is something that that man left behind and around his family and in the land that he tended and the community that he was a part of, that still today, like many years after his passing, it is such a just like a shine, or just a warmth. When people just even talk about him, they all get this same smile in their eyes. And I like to share that story again, just as an aspirational marker, right? And to know like what the impact that a man can have on his family and his community, and not by being a superhero, and not by having to be any special thing, right? But just like I really think it's slowing down enough to assess and take stock of what's going on, and leaning in, just leaning in as best as one can.
Yeah.
So I just want to be careful not to set that up as like there's not some special, unique blueprint to follow or anything you have to do. But I think men are very motivated by legacy, and knowing that they matter, and seeing that they can actually have an impact.
Yeah.
There's a layer of separation between men and the world that's I don't know, I make up, that has something to do with our biology, and we're not the one that carries babies, and there's something there that's so important to a man, to know that he matters. And I don't think most men, at least in our earlier years, we don't think of family as the place where we need to matter. We're so externally focused, guys are, right? We think we have to go make our mark or do our thing or build this thing. And that's all true too. But there is something that's happening, that I'm seeing happening, where men are finding their place closer to home.
Mm.
And it's really beautiful. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful to see it.
And as you speak about your wife's grandfather and about the the legacy, sounds like it's about his existence in the world and the way he was from his heart, which
Exactly.
is different than uh necessarily the like empire building of
Exactly.
business, that is that place that tends to be often spoken about in that archetypal energy of that. um so I want to circle back to the very juicy conversation that we nearly stepped into, that I think we need to go back to, if you're willing, which is the
Yeah.
part about how much the energy is turning into men and partners wanting to really be there, and that is a shift, but and it's taking time for some of that to happen. But there is a partnership piece there that is
Yeah.
also not keeping up with that change.
Yes.
And that is speaking to the part of um, the birthing parents, moms, the partners of men who are holding reins and control of the nurturing,
Yeah.
or the boss of the household energy, that can actually make it pretty hard and challenging for our partners to actually succeed in the ways that we want them to. So we're
Yes.
kind of shooting
Yeah.
ourselves in the foot while
Yeah.
we're desperately wanting more support. And I spoke about this a little bit in my intro, in that I remember this myself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, my firstborn is now 25, so it's been a few years, but I remember wanting my husband to be a male version of parent of how I parented.
Yeah.
And that was actually setting him up to fail
Mm.
and setting me up for disappointment
No.
and robbing our children of a different parent,
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
which actually they benefit from.
So I think that the first thing to name there is that again, and we're hard at work trying to do this, but as the role of fatherhood changes, we are in the liminal space, right? Like collectively, we're in a rite of passage with this. Communally, we're in a rite of passage with this, and there just isn't quite the definition that we can point to yet that says, "Okay, Dad, here is what you need to do." Right? Here are my expectations of you. And I do think that that impulse that you're sharing about that many women are having or birthing partners are having, it's good, right? It is like at its core, it is good and beneficial. And it's like, all right, dude, we need you to show up. It's like, all right, dude, we need something to be different. I need more, right? And in it, I think is an expression of needs, which is great. We
Absolutely.
need
Right.
that. And I feel like where we're finding there's a gap that we're trying to real hard to work with is how we help or how can that request or needs expression be shared in a way that actually motivates action, motivates change, motivates like the coming together and having needs actually met, right? And so we actually, to help us like talk about this, we've been doing some surveying and quizzes, and we have about 1,000 expecting moms who have done a big survey of ours now, really all dialed in to learn about like how can we activate this crop of expecting dads to show up, and how can we empower you expecting mom to communicate effectively? Like how do we, like there's a knot there, right? There's like an interesting thing going on there. And so one of the fun ways we've been doing this is we created a bunch of archetypes for expecting dads, right? And the archetypes, I have them pulled up here. Let me make sure that I can um, say them clearly. But one is the superstar dad, right? So that's the box that you checked, which is just like, okay, he's nailing it. What we found so far is out of about 1,000, about 12% of expecting moms are calling their partner a superstar. All right. The next biggest chunk, about 50% of these expecting moms are saying they're calling it a Mr. A for effort. Like, man, he's showing up, he's trying, but it's just misses the mark here, not really quite getting it, like his effort is strong and his effectiveness is could use some help, right? So that's
Right.
50%, which is
That's
cool.
huge, actually. That's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. 1%, the tiniest sliver, is the ghost dad who just disappeared, which we don't like to talk about, but happens. And
Yep.
then the other, what are the last ones? There's the 1960s dad who is still kind of in that old school 1950s or 1960s, right? He just doesn't see it as his job, doesn't see it as his issue. So he's just off doing his cigar thing. And then
Right.
there's one called the cool as a cucumber. And actually, this is about 25%. Cool as a cucumber is like he's there, he's doing his thing, he's connected, but he's just not, maybe he's not quite grokking the full impact of what's going on. And so it's been really cool to start to have some feedback and some actual and what we're doing there with that survey and that quiz is then offering these expecting moms some resources to send to their guy, because that's what moms are asking us.
Yeah.
They're like we want our dude to do what you're doing. How do I get him to do it? And we're kind of sitting on the other side saying, hey, we want your dude to do to do what we're doing too, right? So there's just like this little like arithmetic problem we're trying to crack. And so anyway, that's kind of like where a lot of our focus has been, is because we know we have amazing feedback on what we're doing. Dads are loving it, and we know that moms need help, and they're saying so. So we're really like just really focusing in on that little in between spot of how
Mm.
do we help make this conversation accessible? How do we? And one of our thoughts here of what can make this really helpful is birth professionals, doulas, and midwives, and these incredible professionals who are here having these conversations already.
And
And
starting
so,
early, and they're in
yeah,
that,
right,
they're talking to them
yeah,
before,
yeah,
diaper changing is even happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that the couples who come to you, well, I guess I'm curious. I don't know. I don't have a sharp question to ask you, but do you resonate with that sort of, I don't know, that little gap in
Yeah.
communication? Is that hard?
Yes. I definitely think there's a gap in that. And I've also, I mean, there's a gap in the communication, and there is also a lot of what is it I wanting to call it? Um, I'm not going to get the right word, but a shoving of the responsibility onto partners
Oh,
that is, and that pushing away rather than reflecting in is, I think, adding to some of the challenge. So
yeah.
I remember reading an article back when I was pregnant 26 years ago about learning to be a parent from the perspective of somebody becoming a mom. And
Mm.
that perspective tends to be, I got to figure it out. I got to do it. I don't know how to do this, but I'm a mom. I got to do it. I got to figure it out. And there's that energy of, I just got to do it. And there hasn't been that same kind of expectation
Mm.
for men and dads. And that there's a piece in that of, oh, I baby's crying. I don't know what to do with the baby right now, but you seem to figure it out here. And
Yeah,
that passing over rather than understanding, oh, I'm a dad. I got to
yeah,
figure this out. But what's happening is that I'm starting to see more and more dads go, I'm a dad. I got to figure this out.
yeah.
And they're being rescued by their partner,
Oh, interesting.
which
Yeah.
is actually undermining
Mm.
their ability to get their own skill set of figuring it out.
That's super interesting. Both, so my partner at Fatherhood Ready and Fatherhood Unlocked is John McBride, and both of us share an experience that I think is somewhat of our driving force behind this. And I'll just speak for myself. I don't want to speak for him, but it has been embarrassing to me personally. It has been a hard thing for me to go through, to realize in different fits and stages of, I love how you're saying it, right? So mom just basically realizes she needs to figure it out. And it took me years to realize what that sort of like ground zero level actually meant. Like I feel like as much as I tried to lean in, as much as I tried to be full co-parent, co-family owner, all of that, I think I think it is just probably how I grew up and how what I saw, or I'm not sure what it is, but it was
Mhm.
really so humbling,
Yeah.
so humbling all along the path to be sort of like reflected that I wasn't showing up enough or wasn't doing enough. And then to try so hard to not get defensive or not protect myself and actually take the feedback and then actually get it like, holy shit, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And like the many times that happened, it is really it's kind of crazy. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy how Yeah, I don't know. I love how you'd help clarify for me how you just express that. Just like I'm the mom, I gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
And yeah,
There's when we talk about co-parenting is a relationship based activity. It
yeah,
is a relationship based relationship. And we influence each other in being successful. So if one person is the CEO of parenting, the other one is never going to feel like they have autonomy
yeah,
to do it in their way.
yeah.
And there's this, and people talk about this all the time, but there's this metaphor and expectation that I kind of loathe, which is the idea of being on the same page. And
Okay.
I'm like, being on the same page is so overrated. I do think it is really important to be in the same book and ideally in the same chapter.
Yeah, cool.
Like, can we agree on sort of the major guiding principles and values of our family?
Yeah.
That matters. That's important. And how those are implemented may be different.
Totally.
There may be some variations, and
Yeah.
that's challenging.
That's one of my favorite parts of our course and what we offer dads is to we have different modules, and one of the modules is for a father to get his own vision of fatherhood. Like, what kind of dad does he want to be? Have a chance to actually reflect and express that. And then we have a series of conversations to be done within the partnership, which is exactly what you're saying. Like, what are our family values? Like, to actually say, because I remember this for Elise and I, my wife, like we had the conversations, but we had them sporadically. We had them in fits and spurts. And I don't know that we ever sort of codified it with any, maybe enough formality to say, okay, like let's actually do this, right? Let's actually put something down here. Let's kind of make a mark and so that we can be changed. But
Yeah.
so when we get feedback from people who do our work that come back and share their family values and like it is really joyful. It's really cool to see and to know that's happening. And I think, yeah,
Yeah.
I love the distinction you're making because most, you know, most images or examples we have as dads of being a caregiver, they're overwhelmingly mothers, right? I think it is yet to be the case that we know what it looks like and we know what it means for a father to be in that role, right? There's still, I actually think it's interesting. I think when you work one on one or when you're right there in it, then it's not mysterious at all. It's
Mm-hmm.
not,
Yeah.
right? You just
Yeah.
see a dad doing his thing, like I just see
Yeah.
me with my kids. Like it's not
Yeah.
confusing, but I think when we try to speak to it at a little bit of distance with a little bit of like context or societal context, it starts to get a little unsure, right? But the reality
Yeah.
is, like, there's so many amazing dads doing such like my friends and my colleagues, and even just the school my kids are a part of. Like, you show up at a party and you see dads just like absolutely killing it,
Yep.
in such a free way and an authentic way. And I hope we can just kind of I hope that just kind of keeps getting broadcast. Those
Mhm.
examples and those true things because there's so much good happening.
So much good happening. I
Yeah.
agree completely. And while I could keep talking, and there's a thousand different things I want to keep engaging with you about, because I think the topic of fathers and partners is one that is underserved. As I said at the get-go, is underserved. And so of course we can't complete the conversation in 1 hour. Um, and you have this conversation as a big part of your platform and your work. So so people can engage with you to continue the conversation as well. So what do you want to share before we wrap up with our audience about your
Yeah, well,
offerings?
yeah, you can find all of our stuff, all of our work, our courses, and our baby prep container all at fatherhoodunlocked.com. Yeah, just to explain it just briefly, right? I think I said it in the interview, but we have for moms or expecting dads, for expecting moms, or dads, we have our very simple to-do checklist, which is where we tend to send people first. And then the deeper course, the Fatherhood Ready course, is a really substantial deep dive on pregnancy prep and birth prep and postpartum prep. And we have birth professionals and really wise people in there in our course helping us inform people correctly. We have a big module about strengthening your relationship before birth, which personally I think maybe if you do nothing else, I feel like might be the most helpful.
I love that. Yes, I think it's very
Yeah,
important. Yes.
yeah. And then finally, there's a big module for dads to really take some time to reflect on what kind of dad they want to be and what that means and what they're working with. Um, and then the last thing I would leave is if there's any birth professionals or postpartum professionals listening, we are really excited to know you and to meet you and to learn from you and to support each other. We feel like we have a very aligned mission, right? We think if we can help activate the dads, everybody's life is going to be better. And so we do have an offer for birth professionals, and I'm sure it'll be put in the show notes. But
Yes, of
for
course.
any birth professional that wants, we want to give you free access to all of our materials, and then also some free codes to share with clients. 3 free codes to share with any of your clients. Um,
Well,
yeah, we're
that's
just
super
excited to.
generous. So do tell us what that is so folks can it's what the URL
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah. So it'll be fatherhoodunlocked.com/Britta is where you can get access to that.
There you go. I love it. That's super generous. Thank you for sharing that. And all right, so it's time for us to start wrapping up, and that's a hard thing to do when we've had a juicy and rich conversation. And as we begin to bring the conversation to a close, I like to end with one question. So, are you ready,
Yep.
Dan? Okay.
Yep.
Um, what's one thing you feel passionately about that you want new or expectant parents to see, hear, feel, or know during this profound period of their lives?
That if you take enough time to just be with your partner, with your new baby, with yourself, if you just protect the time, that you will find in yourself the capacity and the ability to meet the needs of what arises, to the ability to meet your kids' needs, the ability to meet your partner's needs. Just a quick story about what I'm saying here is I had a man I worked with earlier this year who had a family many, many, many years ago. And then recently is starting a second family, starting a new family. And he came to me because he wanted to do it differently this time. And in our first conversation, he told me about he was going to take a couple of days off work and only take a few calls. And I just he gave me the permission to be fully, fully blunt and open with him. And he ended up instead taking 5 months off of his job. And the change in him, the deep rite of passage, the transformation, the things that are happening to him have been mind blowing to him. And just I guess to frame this idea of rite of passage, like it doesn't happen in a short window. If you want the whole thing to actually happen, you have to take the time for it. You have to move at a human pace. You have to move at the pace of our flesh and bones. And so I
Yeah,
know it's
even if you
hard.
don't have the privilege of 5
Right,
months off, which
right,
this gentleman
right.
had, even if
Yeah.
you don't have that privilege, to still take the slow time and cut yourself some slack, right? For
As
the
much
length
as you
it
can.
takes. Yeah.
As much as you can. Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
that's I deeply, deeply believe that.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much. So where can folks reach you?
Fatherhoodunlocked.com is our web presence. And then on Instagram, we're at Fatherhood Unlocked as well.
All right, Fatherhood Unlocked it is. Thank
Yeah.
you, Dan, so much. And thank you, listeners, for sharing this time with us. If something shared today impacted, supported, or moved you, please share this episode with a friend. I produce this podcast myself, and your support makes it possible. To show a little love for the podcast and these conversations, please follow, rate, and review. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please join us on Instagram at Transformed by Birth. I look forward to being with you again on the next episode of Transformed by Birth. Now let's gather what we want to take with us from this episode in an inhale, and with an exhale, we'll blow out our candle. Until next time, bye, friends.